Week 4, Beyond the Self in Meditation 101. So we did week 4 of 6, and it's about moving from fear to love. How we could begin to recognize that fear is rooted in the scarcity and the poverty mindset. It's the bottom of the spectrum. And love is all about being of service and forgiveness, and it's know you're in contact and have faith in a higher power. So when you are coming from a place of lack and scarcity, and you're creating fear decisions, and you're seeing others as competition, and you're always comparing, and you're living in scarcity mindset. So when we are moving incrementally to understand the flow of love and how oneness aspect makes sense in our life, we have to take a look at where the constrictions are in our life. And those could be when our daily activities, where we give judgments to. We have to know how that triggers us, because these are really important on how we can move into giving less attention to the fear-based interactions. We don't react from those old knee-jerk reactions, and we allow love to be present. That doesn't mean that we have to do anything. It doesn't mean we have to protect ourselves or to defend our ego, because the perceptions that we have are usually an illusion of what we think somebody else is thinking about us. So if we're interacting with a stranger and we're receiving some sort of an emotional response, we immediately think that they're judging us and that's who they think we are, and we can go into defense mode. Or it could be with people in our family or our coworkers, or it could happen anywhere. So the first thing we want to do is become aware of the triggerer. What is it saying? What is my ego saying in this moment? And then we want to be able to change the state and replace it with truth. But how can we do that when our knee-jerk reaction is to speak up, defend, or close ourselves off and restrict ourselves? Well, we could learn in the hindsight. We can take a look at how our day panned out, and then in hindsight, take a look back and see where your role, how you were accountable to throwing fuel on the fire, or where you didn't do anything at all. I'm not saying that you're supposed to be walked on in life and not have a voice, because sometimes we need to have a tough love and a firmness about us to be heard. But what I'm talking about is when we buy into the fear and the ego behavior that is coming from a place of selfish behavior, self-serving, and not selfless. Because we know that we are not alone, that everything that happens to someone is happening to us. When we go into the oneness and separation, we talk about the process of awakening, the consciousness, noticing what you're noticing. Because in that moment, when you're beginning to come aware of a tightness in your stomach, or words that you just said that came from a place of combative aggression, so what's happening is our heart closes. We are unable to even have a softness of our words because we're in our fight or flight sometimes, and we begin to react on an impulse. That could mean that we don't say anything and we just leave because fight or flight, or that we're in there and we're defensive and we're actually creating the energy, matching and having like attracts like. But when we're coming from a place of love and compassion, we're not reacting to the energy. In fact, that we're not living in fear. And in fact, we're able to see into that person without creating attachment of judgment of what they think, of what we think they're thinking of us. And we don't have to label or title it or fix their version of what they think we are. We're able to let it go. So being loving is to understand that they're being misguided in that moment, and that you are awake to it. And I'm not saying that we have to allow people to walk on over us and not have a tough love voice when we need to. But what I'm saying is that we don't always have to engage in the energy that's coming towards us. Because our perceptions, this is what triggers the fear ego, is when our perception is telling us what we think that person's thinking of us. When we believe that they think low of us, sometimes we react and we have to defend our ego and show up in a way that may be matching and not helping, not useful. So here are some ways to begin to open up your heart and to soften in these moments. The first is notice what you're feeling. If you're feeling like what you were about to say or about to feel is not going to be from love, then at least you're conscious of it and honor where you are. And in hindsight, if you did nothing in that moment, nothing is better than amplifying energy that is not serving anyone. So what we could do is we can take a look at the state, how we can anchor ourselves in a state, and some of the exercises that I have been taught are the powerful I am affirmations, because it's going to recall a time where you were successful in being patient. And you have that feeling state fill your mind and your memory so that you know that you have faith that you've got this, you've been there before, you've got patience. So that you're able to you're able to use your mind to discipline the action, and it follows through from a place of love and not fear. So this is how we practice in meditation, is when something like this comes up, what you do is you notice what you're noticing. The second thing is you ask questions, you inquire, you ask, what do I need to know about this? What is my truth? Because sometimes when we're taking a look at where we closed off to love in our heart and we're being judgmental and angry, it's often we forget that it takes two to create and to amplify. So how did I play a role in that? Maybe that there wasn't anything that you need to do, but so compassion and forgiveness and letting go is your next step. So how do we do that? How do we surrender something when we feel like we had no cause of it? Well, know that that person, wherever you are encountering, is pushing a button within you. You would not be triggered if there wasn't something within you that didn't need to be resolved. So notice that, okay, well, I didn't cause it, but something within me created and stirred this emotion where I felt angry or I felt hurt, whatever that is. And notice where that ties to, because there's some sort of a label or experience that you've had that's a wound that's being triggered. Another part is to own your feelings and thoughts. So when we are coming from the heart, we have to be able to speak freely without trying to filter our words and say white lies, because we want it to be appeasing to the ears of the person that's receiving it. Sometimes we feel like we do this and it comes from a good place, but at the end of the day, it's because we are protecting someone from the truth because we think they can't handle it. It could really create a bad energy between people. So you really want to be authentic and not afraid to be truthful and really be honest when it counts. The other way it shows up is that you're calling out for help in ways, or you're seeking love or approval, and you're doing so in a way that you're using manipulation as a way. So your heart is calling for love, but you're angry about something. Instead of asking, I don't feel loved in this moment, you're saying, you're horrible and how could you do this? So you're not loving, you're loving from a wound. So we want to be able to recognize the truth, the layer beyond that emotion, the truth behind it. So before you're learning how to express yourself in your truth, is go into the emotion and the feeling in meditation and begin to inquire and ask, what is it there for? What is it teaching you, and what you need to know about it? Another tool that I love to use is I recall incidences where I had to really draw upon an experience to bring back the faith that I have this. So sometimes when I'm in fear, perhaps it's doing a speaking event in a large group, I recall the numerous other times in smaller events where I did pretty good and that I have the skills and I have the ability to speak up, and I remembered that it's of the service. So I remind myself of the value in doing this. I remind myself of the courage that I had and the fun and all of the beautiful, useful memories and emotions. I fill myself up with that, so I change my state. That way, I'm able to open my heart and be authentically myself in speaking up and being me. If I'm letting fear pull the cart, if I'm living from a fearful place, I won't open and express myself, and I may forget my words. So that has been very helpful. So I really reach for a past experience where I have that experience and I could really hold the state and that emotion and remind myself, and that brings me into that essence. I'm able to have groundedness within my mind and my heart so I could speak. So these are powerful things that we could do to begin to live from the heart, and which is a connection to our higher self and beyond. So the oneness part about this week 4 is when we're going into meditation, when we're starting to get the right feeling and the right action and clarity and insight, that is being connected with our higher self in co-creation with the infinite mind. So if I'm asking to have patience and love, I'm literally tapping into the true source, the essence that we are all capable of tapping in tune to it. And it's that oneness. It's the ability for us to see into each other and to be forgiving and to be compassionate. It's when I have had an experience in my life, good or bad, and I carry that energy, good or bad, into my day, I affect all those around me. Whether I'm in a good mood or I'm in a not so good mood, my thoughts and reactions will affect the way I engage with others. So that oneness is all about us recognizing that we affect more than just ourselves. We are beyond the self in this. And so we could bring a lot of healing, and we could really show up and be a leader in our life, or we could play small. So notice in your meditation and in your daily life how we could begin to live from our higher self. We don't have to wait just to go to yoga or meditation at the end of the day. We could begin to really live from that place more and more throughout our day. Blessings.